This book is about Everly Page, who is an executive producer of an Emmy-winning primetime news magazine show. It's sort of like how Dateline used to be before Dateline would pivoted to true crime, more of a grab bag of stories, three or four stories a night. She's really dedicated to being a good journalist. She cares passionately, but she's very ruthless about her career. She's unapologetically ambitious. And um, her boss asks her to do a couple of really bad things, that are not journalistically defensible. He wants her to kill a story because a big investigative story that could save lives because an advertiser might be upset. He wants her to fire a couple of staffers he doesn't like, but who are very dear to her. And she justifies it all saying, well, as a woman in this business, I have to do what I'm told. There's no room for pushback for women. Whether that's true, I leave as an open question. It's in the back of the book in a reader's guide. To what extent do we think that is true today in various industries? But she's convinced of that. Uh, and and it all works, right? Because she does these things that her boss wants her to do, and then he offers her dream job, his job, president of the news division. But she has to follow through on these terrible things. The other piece of the story is that she receives, while all this is going on, she receives an invitation to the 20th reunion of the off-campus house she lived at during college, which was a beautiful old Victorian in this kind of depressed upstate New York town where it had been owned by the daughter of a wealthy man, and the daughter uh, um, got really into the suffragist movement. So this is all set sort of near Seneca Falls, where the Women's Rights Convention of the 1860s happened. So the suffragists actually met in this house. There's a whole subterranean, secret, mysterious parlor where they used to have their meetings, and this is where 12 women from this upstate college are invited, to join. And but my character, so she's invited to the 20th reunion, which is called recommitment. And it's very mysterious. No, what happens at this recommitment? She can't find answers anywhere. But her friend who invited her into the house, who was a year ahead of her, is really leaning on her. You've got to come. It's very important that you come. It won't work if you don't come. But she won't tell her anything about it. But this invitation and just this whole reminder of 20 years ago starts to seep into her consciousness. And the reason she doesn't want to go to this reunion is because she was kicked out of school, she didn't graduate with her friends, and she believes that all of her best friends, the girls in that house, betrayed her in her hour of need. So she wants nothing to do with them. But these memories start coming back to her after this invitation arrives. And she starts, and then we go back in time as the reader. So one chapter will be Ev as a 40-something news producer, very, as I said, ambitious and ruthless. And then every other chapter we go back to Lee, which is the other half of her name, Ever Lee. She went by Lee in college, the idealistic young reporter with all these good friends. And so there's some tension there going, this idealistic young girl who cared so much about journalism and had these wonderful friends is now this kind of isolated, bitter, very successful woman. How did this happen? And then at a certain point, I'll just say that the two storylines literally cross. Um, and the two versions of Everly come into contact with each other. And then, as they say, everything changes. I envisioned Everly now in her 40s as quite alone. She's a workaholic. She has got a boyfriend who she met actually through work. He doesn't work at the same place she does, but they meet through that place. And I wanted to explore how, oh, and the other thing you need to know about her is her mother died when she was a child. And her father, right after she got out of high school, moved to Europe. He's a physicist and he goes to work at the CERN laboratory in Geneva, Switzerland. And unsurprisingly, meets a woman there who has a couple of kids and settles down. So she basically loses both her parents in the span of a few years. The lesson she takes from that is you cannot trust people. They are unreliable. So she's become a bit of a loner, but she has some needs and she really cares for Sean. But Sean comes with this big family. Now, only one member of his family lives in New York. He has a younger sister who lives up in Westchester and is parenting a child by herself while her husband is off doing consultancy in Doha, Qatar. But he has a large family. They're in Chicago, but they like to come to New York and they'll set up camp in a townhouse that someone, they're both professors. They know someone who's on sabbatical. They go stay there. They want her and Sean to come for their 50th anniversary to Evanston, Illinois, to celebrate. After so many years alone and taking care of herself, she finds these people exhausting. The truth is, they are lovely. But yes, they are little busy bees in each other's lives. There are these weekly Zooms. What about the children? What happened on the playground? And she just finds all of that really hard to deal with. And it comes to a head at a certain point in the book where she cannot be there for her job and for Sean at the same time, and she makes a very fateful choice. So the way that book ended, as I remember, is she gets off the merry-go-round, she gets off the fast track, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but she goes and does her same publicity work, but for a small nonprofit or something like that. And have read other books and seen movies where just kind of the woman refashions her life in a smaller way so she has room for her family, which is fine. I'm sure that's a great solution for a lot of stories and for a lot of actual people. But I did not want that. I did not want her to give up the big job for Sean or for his family, but I wanted her to think about different ways of doing the job and being clear with Sean and his family about what she can do and what she needs to. She's got to enter into uncomfortable conversations that as a loner she hasn't had to have. But now if she wants it all, this is what she's going to have to do.
Do you envision this with a sequel, or was this a one and done standalone?
I think it's a standalone because by the end, while the end feels like a bit of a beginning, which I think, a lot of books that I've loved, but I think that the new beginning is something better imagined, saying, well, she's learned a lot of lessons, she's come a long way, she has some roadblocks ahead. So I don't know, but she's still in my head as a character. So if she tells me, as a lot of your listeners probably know, at a certain point in writing, you can with all the ideas in the world, characters will start to do what they do and what they would do and what they would. So if she comes into my head, and whispers another, chapter of her story, then I would consider